We are about to join Mickey Blake, oldest son of Ernie Blake, who founded Taos Ski Valley in 1955 when Mickey was only 11 years old. Listen as he talks about some of the history depicted in photos on display. His stories and memories document events that may someday be forgotten.
I'm Mickey Blake, and this photo is of my parents very early on, probably 1958 or so. We started in 55. The background is the old Hondo Lodge, and there's one very important thing. See the band-aids on my father's fingers? In the days of cable bindings, when you were fitting rental skis, people would step on your fingers. They didn't mean to. If you look a little closely, my father has his Rocky Mountain ski instructor's pin on. That was number 5. He was one of the first ones into the Rocky Mountain Skiing Association of instructors. But this whole thing about Taos Ski Valley will be a story about how they came here and took an old mining community and turned it into the ski business. In the background here you see the Hondo Lodge, which was actually here before my parents came. It was unfinished, it had no windows, no doors, nothing. But it certainly appealed to my parents after their running of Santa Fe, which they had no lodging facilities. That bothered my father, and having that shell of a building they could finish really appealed to him. Well, here we have a map of Taos Ski Valley, a photo map. The snake dance is here. That's where the Hondo Lodge was. And that was the center of everything in the beginning. And none of this was open. It was entirely forested when my parents came and stood down here. And the very first year, they went as far as you can see up to there. And then you would ski across. The trail is barely visible. It was called Chicken Alley. And you then could ski down snake dance. Naturally, we didn't make a lot of money because it was only expert skiers, and I think there are probably some beginners buried up there in the woods still. But later on, we built a Poma lift that went all the way up to that rounded area where you see a building. And it was a very interesting lift because a Poma lift you ride on the ground, and as you would ride up, people would ski around you coming down. And they usually are like slalom poles. And that was built in 57, the first chairlift in 61. The second chairlift, you can see the straight line of the lift line, built in 65. And you can also see that by the time this was taken, the Kachina Basin there in the back was being developed as well. The lift up to the top of Kachina, of course, was not there. And the first intermediate runs were, that's Porcupine, Powderhorn, and White Feather. We learned very quickly that we needed beginner terrain. As we look at this picture, this is Al Rosen of Al's Run, which you see in the background. Al was a doctor in Taos, one of 3 doctors, and he was instrumental in helping with anything we needed. He had contacts with everyone. Since there were so few doctors, the chances are the highway foreman was his patient. And if we needed something, Dr. Rosen would try and get it for us if he could. If you look at Al's back, he's got his oxygen tank on. He'd had a weak heart. And when he came skiing, he had the most primitive system on his back with a little tube he just held in his mouth. They're much more sophisticated devices today, but he did need oxygen, and that's how he did it. In this picture we have my mom, and she's holding a Perron because she was the one who made the martinis that went in the Perron. I got to go to Juarez to buy those things at the glass factory. I had to cross the border to go get them. My father had a class, and I was just skiing by. And one of the ladies in the class was frozen. She just couldn't see. So he stopped me and he said, go down and have your mom mix up some martinis and bring them back up to us here. So I did. And my father gave the lady who was frozen a drink of martini, I suspect more than one. And according to him, after that, she skied like a goddess. Looking at this picture, these are people lined up to ride up the Bridger Bozeman lift. It went this way and it went up Al's Run as far as you can see when you stand in front of the cafeteria. And it was carried up there piece by piece by my father and a group of 16 Indians from Taos Pueblo in light snow. It was slip and slide all the way, but they did it. And one other thing in this photograph that we looked at, there's a snowcat with skis on the front that we pulled people up into the woods with, and they would ride behind holding onto a rope. And I was about 13 and not tall enough to drive it without sliding forward to get the clutch or steering, one or the other. This was another one of our early lifts. This was a ski coulee, and it was a jig back lift, right? A couple sets of bars went up and the empties came down. But as it took off, the cable would droop and there was a weight right here. It's very hard to see. And it would bop you on the head. So it was a wonderful design. Well, here we see a rotary snowplow. Tom Esch is driving, and obviously he's throwing the snow. On the back here, it took a larger engine than the truck had to spin all this stuff. And we had bought that for like $200 at an auction in Alamosa. It belonged to the Colorado Highway Department. And in fact, when we bought it, we were going to drive it back to Taos. And they had taken superior care of these things. So I stopped at the first station that had diesel and went to fill it. And by God, if the Colorado Highway Department hadn't kept that thing full of diesel fuel, they took care of it, whether they were going to get rid of it or not. And as we left the Colorado Highway Department in Alamosa, all the old mechanics came out to see it go. And they handed us every manual they had how to operate that thing. For years, people hiked along this ridge and up into Kachina, and then they would ski these bowls, which were fabulous powder bowls. But if you look closely, there's cornices. There's a big cornice right there. And we had real avalanche problems until we got the ski patrol building up there and they could go out and knock those down before they came down naturally. This photo is a great photo of my father walking along the ridge. If you look at his equipment, this is pre-1965, so they came up quite a ways up first, then walked along the ridge, and this is exploring. They were just seeing what was on the backside, but I pointed out that ridge to you when we were looking at the photo of the map. Well, this is the ski shop, our home. I lived in this apartment. My daughter had her, when she was a baby, had her crib and could look out that window. This building was torn down to put up the Blake Hotel. And the Blake stands where this stood from '67 onward. It was built in stages. The rental shop was built first, and we all skated with those skateboards on this deck, and Danny and Dana Brienza had a hamburger stand up on this thing. And the Honda Lodge is right here. We also rented cars. And these drawings are drawings my father had in a book of medieval images from Germany that we used over and over for all sorts of things. And as I walk along here looking at these pictures, they're indicative of how much the valley has changed, and the changes are good. It's really blossomed the valley to have all the new facilities, new equipment, and I enjoy coming here. I live mostly in San Diego, but I sure come to ski and I do enjoy it.